like a couple years later, and holy moly, that picture of her, that's a close-up of her, I guess she's like 6 years old, and her eyes.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I don't even know how to describe them. They're just evil.
Yeah, it looks like she's crying blood.
Yeah, exactly.
So she's got black stuff coming out of her face, and she's upset. You can see her ants are flying around the room. The room's all topsy-turvy. And it's her birthday.
Yeah, and why is she mad, Larry?
Well, she's levitating everybody. She's having a tantrum, and she's mad because her father hasn't been making an appearance.
Yeah, he's not around for her birthday. And we get a flash to find out that he's like turned into a tree as like a punishment for marrying the Muggle.
Right.
But they're not telling Sabrina that.
Right.
They're no Glenda witches in this story. There's no good witches. These are all wicked witches of the West.
Yeah,
I half expected these ladies to have the black and white stockings.
The picture of the dad in the tree is so horrifying because, again, I read this on my Kindle, and when you're reading on a Kindle, I kind of prefer to read on the Kindle because you can do panel by panel.
Oh yeah, and really zoom in on it.
Well, you don't get the super reveal at first. You see some words up there telling what your dad's he's doing stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you flip them to the next panel, and the next panel is the close up of the tree. And
and his face is so like hidden in the tree. It's not like a goofy. It's not back to the Wizard of Oz. It's not like those trees, or it's not like, the Ents. It's like all you really see is his face, and he's like screaming.
Yeah, he's in pain.
Stuck in a screaming pose. Ugh.
Yeah, this is a cool book. So we see flashes of Sabrina growing up, and then she gets a pet cat, but it's not a pet cat.
Yeah, I really like this type of character, and this was one of the few things I did know about Sabrina, and is they get like these, what do they call it?
Familiar. A familiar.
And it's an animal that like talks and like protects you and has like some magical ability, and so it's like your partner in crime kind of character. And so every witch or warlock has their own, and we will see another character who has a different type of familiar. But we're not quite there yet. That comes more at the end. Right.
So Sabrina has they sort of put in like the ants, her two ants are trying to instill in her that you can't be using your powers. You got to dial this stuff back in. You've seen that trope before.
Yeah, there's rules and regulations. There's definitely some like Harry Potter elements, but it's like they're just classic witch and warlock type elements. But I'm just so familiar with Harry Potter. It's like, oh yeah, this is similar to like Harry Potter.
So this little vignette here where she has a bad day at school. Mm-hmm. Somebody is teasing her.
Yeah, for being a half-blood.
Yeah.
And the aunt is not happy about that.
Neither of the aunts are happy about it, and they make an appointment to go visit this little girl. and
what do they do to her, Larry?
So this is funny too, because if there's one, the one aunt has a very hard line about a lot of stuff, and the other aunt is a little softer and friendlier about things. But in this particular case, the friendlier aunt turns herself into a monstrous, scary, 8-legged spider that's, 16 feet tall, and just chases this little girl around the yard. It's awesome.
And the face on this spider is so creepy. Like, I've never really seen a spider's face like this. And it even, like, it comes out of the panel a little bit, and the little girl is so screaming. And when the witch comes back, the aunt comes back, she's like, "Oh, I knew that whole family's afraid of spiders." Tee hee hee.
Yeah, and the one ant says to the other ant that she's like, I didn't think you would show any backbone, and this is a rare occurrence that you get this jumpy. So you see the love that they have for young Sabrina here.
Yeah, they're very protective of her. And so then they have this kind of discussion about, okay, should she be in a magical school, or is it gonna be too hard for her because she's a half-breed? And we see them they're talking telepathically, which is, it's that reveal of, okay, what are the magical powers that witches have? We know that they can teleport, right? And what are some of the other ones we've seen?
Well, when I was reading this, it took me a second to realize that, they're speaking telepathically. And I was like, I wonder if James is going to get this, because it's little thought bubbles instead of
normal speech. And one thing that did trip me up was like the ants' heads got switched from their position on the couch. So like the ant with the glasses is sitting on the left side of the couch, but telepathically she's on the right side. And that almost tripped me up, but it was, for some reason it didn't.
Yeah, it did.
I don't know.
They did a nice job. But then there's a third voice in between these two ants, and it's Sabrina's. She could read her thoughts all along.
Yeah, she now has the power. So now we know that they have the power of teleporting. They can talk telepathically. They can transform into spiders.
And they can levitate.
Oh yeah, and they can levitate. They can levitate themselves and other things.
Right.
So I like that. It's a great progression of reveals of their magical abilities. And they're all types of abilities that you're familiar enough with that it's not crazy. It's like, okay, this seems like something a witch should be able to do.
So they do make the decision to move to a new school district.
Yep.
And a new house.
Yeah, a new creepy-looking house across from the cemetery.
Yeah, it's a great-looking house.
Yeah.
And
so they said that they there's an endless supply of food. And I was like, food? What are they eating?
Yeah, I think it's implied that they're going to be feasting on corpses or the souls of corpses, or I don't know.
Yeah, it came up later because I had that curiosity, and it was almost like a hook. But if it hadn't been addressed later, I would have just been a little upset. But they said that they dig up the corpses and eat the meat.
Oh, they do?
Oh, man,
I don't remember seeing that.
When Sabrina's talking to another character, I don't remember who it is. Maybe it was one of them. And she's like, oh, they're outside getting some whatever meat.
Oh.
It's like, oh, okay. They're not holding back on these characters being creepy and evil.
Right.
Usually they're trying to make the main characters you empathize with them, or you're like, oh, these characters are fun. And they are fun, but they're still creepy. There's a kind of a cool line that they're able to balance out.
I think it gets really fun when we meet her cousin, who has been kicked out of school in his. He's been kicked out of London witch school, and he is a warlock.
Yeah,
and a very cool one too.
Yeah, and he got kicked out because one of his prefects short-sheeted his bed, so he took his hands away. Which is that's such a creative way to deal with a guy you don't like.
Yeah. Again, kind of like another Harry Potter. Doesn't Harry Potter turn somebody into a pig nose or something?
Exactly.
I kind of remember that. But and he's got a familiar too. So her
what are
cousin.
His familiars?
Oh, I want to talk about the cousin a little bit real fast because the cousin is cool. He's British.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a cool leather jacket, and he's just a cool he looks like, and you can imagine it's of the time, so he looks like one of the Beatles.
Yeah.
And
he's definitely he's a cool guy. He's a little on the rebellious side.
Right. And his familiar...
He's not afraid of breaking the rules.
Yeah, he's not afraid of breaking the rules, and he has a pair of... Oh, they're just so awesome to look at. A pair of cobras that jump out of the suitcase that he carries.
Yeah. And they have these markings on the back that their father is the god Glyson, and they have the marking on the back. But Sabrina's cat isn't intimidated by these snakes, and like, hey, you'd better not mess around with me. You guys are losers, and I'll skin you if you.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh,
the snakes okay.
The snakes are so cool, and Sabrina just like sits down and plays with the snakes. It's so like cobras are the scariest looking. They're so mean looking. So
but in this world, it's like whatever. I can deal with you guys.
Right, and they talk. So all the familiars talk, and so her cat is pretty punchy too. We just sort of glossed over it, but
it's a great character.
He's got a real voice of reason, but also kind of a real.
He's catty.
Yeah, he's catty. There you go. So now we're in high school. Sabrina is.
So they did a great job of like bringing you along quickly enough that you're able to get to this teenage witch, but still have enough of the backstory and establish all the characters. So, I mean, by now we have Sabrina, we have the two aunts, we have the backstory of her parents, we have the familiar, we have the cousin, we have the cousin's familiars, and we're about like a little more than halfway through.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but it wasn't overwhelming.
No, not at all. It's and so now we have a teenage witch.
Yeah. And one of the things I thought was interesting is she has like silver hair, and she's like, it's like the classic, you're going to high school, first day of school. I hope I like look pretty. I hope all the people like me. So you get this whole like, oh, it's a normal world, like almost like you can see where it's starting to be Archie world.
Right.
It's like I'm like, where's Archie in this?
Right, Archie. Well, we don't meet Archie, but we meet all of a few characters. But she doesn't go to Riverdale. She goes to Glendale, which is
the rival school.
The rival school. And
that was funny.
So she meets some.
And then the cousin is trying to be like a bad influence on her and like make her use magic so that she's prettier, so that everyone will like her. And she's like, I need to, like, the cat's like, no, you should be yourself. That's why you went to this new school, and she's on the side of reason on this one, thankfully.
Right.
It'd be a lot to keep up if you're going to be, Marilyn Monroe your whole life.
Yeah, and he's flashing and changing her from Marilyn Monroe to, Judy Garland, and, like, it's pretty neat. It's pretty, like, the art
does a good job there too, even if it's not like super detailed. You can see what the transitions are.
Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But so she's reluctant to use magic until she has an opportunity to use some magic.
Mm-hmm.
After meeting
Harvey Kinkle.
Harvey Kinkle.
I love the name, because like the first time I saw Harvey Kinkle, I'm like, that's a lame name. And then they like make fun of his name throughout the comic. I'm like, oh, they feel the same way I do.
Harvey Kinkle, she has eyes for Harvey Kinkle. Mm-hmm. And she just wants some attention from him. And and
her new friend who she just met, red-haired lady, she's like, he's mine. Keep your hands off him.
But that's not going to stop Sabrina. So,
no, she's got the power.
So here's where Sabrina gets to start fooling around with some of her magic. And she and her cousin...
Yeah, she gets to be a little bit of a rebellious teenager here.
Yeah, and against the advice of the cat, do a
little spell.
They do a spell, and Harvey,
and it's like a classic witch's brew too.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of cool stuff in the there's one whole page of them brewing up this spell and how you had to get the honey from this particular tree and like all of it, like the jar and
and like take his picture and do something clockwise and then shake it as hard as you can and add a dash of cinnamon and it's all designed so that he'll be enamored with her and totally works.
It totally works.
Yeah, even he's like bashful and then she gets to be the confident one who's like, are you going to take me to the movies this weekend? Goldfinger, maybe. Like there's a little bit of like they didn't overdo it with the 50s references. It's
Right.
pretty subtle.